The auction block stood in the blazing afternoon sun of Silver Peak, Nevada, and Penelope Sterling could not believe her life had come to this moment in the summer of 1882. She stood trembling in a simple cotton dress, her dark hair pinned back severely, while men gathered in the dusty street to bid on her like she was nothing more than livestock or a piece of furniture being sold to settle accounts. Her father had died 3 weeks ago, shot in a card game gone wrong at the Silver Dollar Saloon, leaving behind debts that stretched far beyond anything their modest homestead could cover. The banker, a cruel man named Mortimer Hayes, had wasted no time in calling those debts due, and when Penelope could not pay, he had declared that she herself would be sold to recoup the losses. It was not legal, not really, but in a town like Silver Peak, where Hayes owned half the buildings and had the sheriff in his pocket, legality meant very little. Penelope was 20 years old, and until 3 weeks ago, she had been helping her father run their small horse ranch on the outskirts of town. She knew how to ride, rope, and break horses better than most men twice her age. Her mother had died when she was 12, leaving just her and her father to make their way in this harsh Nevada territory. They had been happy enough, or at least content, until her father's gambling had spiraled out of control in his grief and loneliness. Now she stood on this platform while Hayes read out the terms of sale in his nasal voice. "Gentlemen, this here is Miss Penelope Sterling, age 20, healthy and able-bodied. She can cook, clean, and work a ranch. The winning bidder will take on her father's debts of $800, and she will work for him until such time as that debt is considered paid." "Do I hear an opening bid?" Penelope's stomach churned. $800 was a fortune, an amount she could never hope to earn in years of honest work. She scanned the crowd, seeing faces she knew from town. There was old Samuel Fletcher, who already had 3 wives out on his Mormon settlement. There was Dutch Kearney, who ran the brothel on the edge of town and whose eyes made her skin crawl. There was Jackson Wells, a rancher known for beating his horses and his workers with equal enthusiasm. $50, Samuel Fletcher called out, and Penelope felt her heart sink. $75, Dutch Kearney countered, grinning to show his gold teeth. The bidding continued, climbing slowly as the sun beat down mercilessly. Penelope felt sweat trickling down her spine, felt the eyes of every man in that crowd assessing her worth like she was a mare at market. She wanted to run, wanted to scream, but 2 of Hayes's men stood at either side of the platform with rifles across their arms. The bidding had reached $200 with Dutch Kearney leading when Penelope heard a new voice cut through the crowd. $800. Every head turned. Penelope looked too, shading her eyes against the sun to see who had spoken. A tall man stood at the back of the crowd, dusty from travel, with a wide-brimmed hat pulled low over his face. He wore simple working clothes, a gun belt around his hips, and spurs that caught the light as he walked forward through the parting crowd. $800, he repeated, his voice deep and steady. "Cash money, right here, right now." Mortimer Hayes's eyes widened with greedy delight. "Well now, that is the full amount. Do I hear any counter bids?" the crowd murmured, but no one spoke. $800 was far more than anyone had expected to pay. Dutch Kearney looked angry but shook his head and stepped back. "Sold," Hayes announced with satisfaction. To the gentleman in the back, "Come forward, sir, and let us conclude our transaction." The tall man walked up to the platform, and for the first time, Penelope got a clear look at him. He was young, maybe 26 or 27, with a strong jaw darkened by several days of stubble. His eyes were a striking hazel, and when they met hers, she saw something she had not expected: kindness and a deep, burning anger that was not directed at her. He pulled a thick roll of bills from inside his vest and counted them out into Hayes's eager hands. The banker examined each one carefully before nodding with satisfaction. "Excellent. She is all yours, Mr. Vincent Thompson," the man said shortly. He turned to Penelope and held out his hand to help her down from the platform. His grip was strong and warm, his hands calloused from hard work. "Come with me, miss." Penelope took his hand because she had no other choice, but her mind was racing. Who was this Vincent Thompson? What did he intend to do with her? She had expected cruelty or lecherous intent from whoever won the auction, but his expression was difficult to read. He led her away from the crowd, toward where a fine roan horse stood tied to the hitching post in front of the general store. The crowd began to disperse, the entertainment over. Penelope walked beside Vincent Thompson in silence, acutely aware that legally, for all intents and purposes in this moment, she belonged to him. When they reached the horse, Vincent finally spoke. "I imagine you have some belongings you need to collect." "Yes, at the boarding house. Mrs. Chen let me stay there after my father." She could not finish the sentence. "Show me the way." They walked through the dusty streets of Silver Peak, past the saloons and shops, the bank and the hotel. Penelope was aware of people watching from windows and doorways, whispering about the auction, about the stranger who had paid such an enormous sum. She felt humiliated beyond words, but she held her head high because she would not give this town the satisfaction of seeing her break. Mrs. Chen's boarding house was a neat two-story building on the quieter end of town. The elderly Chinese woman who ran it had been kind to Penelope, not charging her for the room after her father died, knowing she had no money. When they entered, Mrs. Chen looked up from her sewing and her expression grew worried. "Miss Penelope, I heard what happened. I am so sorry." "Thank you, Mrs. Chen. I just need to get my things." It took only minutes to gather her few possessions into a worn canvas bag. A few dresses, her mother's Bible, a daguerreotype of her parents on their wedding day, her father's pocket watch. Everything she owned in the world fit into one small bag. Vincent waited downstairs, speaking quietly with Mrs. Chen. When Penelope came down, she caught the end of their conversation. "A disgrace, what Hayes did," Mrs. Chen was saying. "That girl is good, works hard. Her father was a fool with cards, but she did not deserve this." "No, she did not," Vincent agreed. He turned as Penelope reached the bottom of the stairs. "Ready?" she nodded. Mrs. Chen embraced her quickly, whispering in her ear, "Be careful, child. You do not know this man." They left the boarding house and returned to where Vincent's horse waited. He secured her bag to the saddle, then turned to her with that same unreadable expression. "I need you to trust me for the next few hours," he said. "I know that is asking a lot, given the circumstances, but I give you my word that I mean you no harm. There is something we need to do before we leave town." "What?" Penelope asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "We need to get married." Penelope stared at him, certain she had misheard. "What? Married?" Vincent repeated. He pushed his hat back and she could see his eyes more clearly now, see the earnestness in them. "Look, Miss Sterling, what happened today was wrong. It was illegal, immoral, and it made me sick to watch. But the fact is, Hayes has legal papers saying I bought your debt. If I just take you away from here, he will claim I stole his property. He will send men after us, and it will be a mess. But if you are my wife, then you are under my protection as my spouse, and no debt can touch you. Do you understand?" Penelope's head was spinning. "But I do not even know you. Why would you do this? Why did you pay all that money?" Vincent looked away for a moment, toward the mountains in the distance, and when he spoke his voice was tight with emotion. 5 years ago, my sister was in a situation similar to yours. Different circumstances, but she was being forced into something against her will to pay off family debts. A good man helped her, married her to protect her, and they are happy now with 2 children. When I rode into town this morning and heard what was about to happen, I knew I could not stand by and let it happen to someone else, so I did what needed to be done. "You spent $800 on a stranger," Penelope said, still trying to process this. "I have been working as a trail boss for the past 4 years, driving cattle from Texas to the railheads. I have saved my money, and I have no family depending on me besides my sister, who is well cared for. The money was just money. Your freedom was worth the cost." Tears burned in Penelope's eyes. She had expected this day to end with her in the clutches of some cruel man who would use her and discard her. Instead, this stranger was offering her a way out, a way back to freedom, at tremendous cost to himself. "What do you want from me?" she asked, needing to understand. "If we marry, what do you expect?" Vincent met her eyes directly. "Nothing you are not willing to give. I am offering you a marriage of protection, not a marriage of convenience for my benefit. Once we are away from here and you are safe, if you want to go your own way, I will not stop you. I will give you money to start fresh somewhere else. Or if you prefer, you can stay on my ranch and we can figure things out as we go. But I promise you, Miss Sterling, I will never force you to anything. You have my word on that." Penelope searched his face, looking for signs of deception, but she saw only sincerity. And really, what choice did she have? If she refused, Hayes still owned her debt, and Vincent could sell it back to Hayes or to anyone else. At least this way she would have some protection, some chance at a future. "All right," she said quietly. "I will marry you." Relief washed over Vincent's face. "Thank you for trusting me. I know it is not easy. Now we need to find someone to perform the ceremony. Is there a preacher in town you trust? Reverend Walker at the chapel might do it, but he is friends with Hayes. I do not think he would help us." Vincent frowned, thinking, "What about a justice of the peace? Anyone who can legally perform marriages?" Penelope thought for a moment. "Judge Thornton. He is retired now, but he still has the authority. He lives in that house at the end of Main Street, the one with the green shutters. He never liked Hayes much. My father once helped him when his barn caught fire. He might be willing. Then let us go talk to Judge Thornton." They walked through town again, leading the horse behind them. Penelope felt strange, disconnected from reality, like she was watching this happen to someone else. Just this morning she had woken up dreading the auction, but also half hoping it was all a nightmare. Now she was about to marry a complete stranger to escape an even worse fate. Judge Thornton was 70 if he was a day, with a shock of white hair and sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. He answered his door himself and looked Vincent and Penelope up and down with interest. "Miss Sterling," he said in his gravelly voice, "I heard about the shameful business in town today. I am sorry for your loss and sorrier still for what Hayes tried to do." "Thank you, Judge," Penelope said. "This is Vincent Thompson. He won the auction, but he wants to help me. We would like you to marry us if you are willing." Judge Thornton's bushy eyebrows rose. "Is that so? Come inside, both of you. Let us talk about this properly." They sat in his parlor, a comfortable room lined with law books and smelling of pipe tobacco. The judge poured them each a glass of water and settled into his chair with a thoughtful expression. "Now then, young man, explain to me exactly what your intentions are. I will not perform a marriage that is just another form of slavery, no matter how it is dressed up." Vincent explained everything clearly and honestly, including his offer to let Penelope leave if she chose to once they were safely away from Silver Peak. Judge Thornton listened carefully, occasionally glancing at Penelope to gauge her reaction. When Vincent finished, the judge turned to Penelope. "And you, Miss Sterling, Do you consent to this marriage freely? You can speak honestly here. If you would rather, I can try to find another solution, though I confess options are limited given Hayes's influence." Penelope took a breath. "I consent. Mr. Thompson has been nothing but respectful, and I believe he is offering me the best chance I have at a future. I do not want to be sold to someone who will abuse me, and I do not want to spend years working off a debt that should never have been mine in the first place. If marriage to a good man is my way out, then I will take it." Judge Thornton nodded slowly. "Very well. I will perform the ceremony, but I want you both to understand that once I do this, you will be legally married. That is not something to be entered into lightly. Mr. Thompson, even if Miss Sterling chooses to leave later, you will still be married unless you go through the process of divorce, which is expensive and difficult. Are you prepared for that?" "I am," Vincent said without hesitation. "And Miss Sterling, being married means you will be under your husband's legal authority in the eyes of the law. You are placing a great deal of trust in his good character. Are you certain?" "As certain as I can be, given the circumstances," Penelope replied. "And frankly, Judge, it still seems better than the alternative." "Fair enough." Judge Thornton stood, using his cane to steady himself. "Give me a moment to get my book and my certificate forms. We will make this official." While the judge was out of the room, Vincent turned to Penelope. "Are you sure about this? Even now, if you want to try something else, we can think of another way." "What other way is there?" Penelope asked quietly. "You are offering me freedom and protection. That is more than I had any right to hope for this morning. I just hope someday I can repay you for your kindness." "You do not owe me anything," Vincent said firmly. "What I did today, I did because it was right, not because I expected something in return." Judge Thornton returned with a leather-bound book and some papers. "We will need 2 witnesses. Let me fetch my housekeeper and my clerk." Within minutes, 2 more people had joined them, a middle-aged woman with a kind face and a young man who worked as Judge Thornton's assistant. They stood as witnesses while the judge opened his book. The ceremony was simple and brief. Judge Thornton read the legal requirements, asked them each if they consented to the marriage, and had them repeat their vows. Penelope's voice shook slightly as she promised to take Vincent as her husband, and she could hear the same tremor in his voice as he made his vows to her. There were no rings, no flowers, no celebration. Just 2 strangers binding their lives together out of necessity and a kind of desperate hope. "By the power vested in me by the territory of Nevada, I now pronounce you man and wife," Judge Thornton said. "Mr. Thompson, you may kiss your bride if she is willing." Vincent looked at Penelope questioningly. She nodded slightly, and he leaned in and pressed a chaste, gentle kiss to her lips. It was her first kiss, and despite the strange circumstances, she felt her heart flutter at the contact. Judge Thornton filled out the marriage certificate with a flourish and signed it, then had the witnesses sign as well. He handed the document to Vincent. "There you are. Keep that safe. It is your proof of marriage and Miss Sterling's proof that she is now Mrs. Thompson, free from any prior debts." "Thank you, Judge," Vincent said, shaking the older man's hand. "I am grateful for your help. Just treat her well, son. That is all the thanks I need." He turned to Penelope and took her hand gently. "Your father was a good man who lost his way. I am sorry you had to pay for his mistakes. I hope this works out for you, my dear." "Thank you, Judge Thornton," Penelope said, her throat tight with emotion. "For everything." They left the judge's house as the sun was beginning to set, painting the Nevada sky in shades of orange and pink. Vincent helped Penelope onto his horse, then swung up behind her. She stiffened at the contact, at the feeling of his arms around her as he took the reins, but his touch was respectful, careful not to make her uncomfortable. "We will ride until dark, then camp for the night," he said. My ranch is about 3 days' ride from here, north toward the Oregon border. Are you all right with that?" "Yes," Penelope said. She had never been more than a day's ride from Silver Peak in her life, but there was nothing left for her here now. Everything she had known was gone. They rode out of town as the last light faded from the sky. A few people saw them leave, and Penelope wondered what they would say, what stories would be told about the girl who was auctioned and married to a stranger in the same day. But it did not matter anymore. That part of her life was over. Vincent proved to be an easy companion on the trail. He did not push for conversation, seemed content with silence, but when Penelope did speak, he listened attentively and answered her questions honestly. They made camp that first night near a creek, and Vincent gave her his bedroll while he slept on his saddle blanket near the fire. "You do not have to do that," Penelope protested. "It is your bedroll. You are my wife now," Vincent said with a slight smile. "Even if it is just on paper, I am not going to have it said that Vincent Thompson made his wife sleep on the ground while he took the comfortable spot. Please, take it. I have slept in worse places." Penelope accepted, too tired to argue. She lay wrapped in the blanket that smelled of leather and sage and something distinctly masculine, watching the stars wheel overhead. Across the fire, she could see Vincent's silhouette, sitting with his back against a rock, keeping watch. Despite everything, she felt safe. The next day, they rode through increasingly rugged country, leaving the desert behind and climbing into hill country where pine trees grew thick and the air smelled of resin. Vincent shot a rabbit for dinner, and Penelope showed him how her mother had taught her to cook it with wild herbs. They talked more that day, sharing small pieces of their lives. Vincent told her about his family, his parents who had died in a cholera outbreak when he was 19, his younger sister Sarah, who had married the man who saved her and now lived on a farm in Wyoming, his years working cattle drives and saving money to buy his own place. Penelope told him about growing up on the horse ranch, about her mother's death and her father's slow slide into grief and gambling, about the horses she had loved and trained, about the life she had thought she would have before it all fell apart. "I am sorry you lost all that," Vincent said as they rode. "Your father's ranch, I mean. Do you know what will happen to it?" "Hayes will sell it to cover the remaining debts my father had around town," Penelope said bitterly. The land was not worth much and the house needed repairs, but the horses were good stock. They will probably sell for a decent price. Vincent was quiet for a moment. "Did you have a favorite among the horses?" "Yes, a buckskin mare named Juniper. I raised her from a filly. She was smart and fast and gentle. I hope whoever buys her treats her well." They camped that second night near a waterfall, the sound of rushing water filling the darkness. Penelope washed in the stream, grateful for the chance to clean the dust from her skin and hair. When she returned to camp, Vincent had coffee brewing and beans warming on the fire. "There is something I need to tell you," he said as they ate. "About my ranch." Penelope looked up, suddenly worried. "What about it?" "It is not much yet. I only bought it 6 months ago, and I have been working to build it up. There is a house, but it is small, just 3 rooms. There is a barn and some outbuildings, and I have about 50 head of cattle and a dozen horses. I have 2 hired hands who help me, brothers named Tom and James Fletcher. They are good men, honest workers, but the place is not fancy and there is a lot of work to do." "I am not afraid of work," Penelope said. "I have been working ranches my whole life." Vincent smiled. "I thought you might say that." "The thing is, Penelope, I want you to understand that you will have a real place there. Not as a servant or a worker, but as my wife, even if the marriage is just for legal protection. Tom and James know I went to Silver Peak for supplies. They do not know about you yet, but I will explain the situation to them, and they will treat you with respect or they will find work elsewhere." "Thank you," Penelope said softly, "for treating me like a person, not property. You did not have to do any of this." "Yes, I did," Vincent said simply. "I could not live with myself if I had not." That night, as Penelope lay in the bedroll again, she found herself thinking about the man she had married. He was handsome, certainly, but more than that, he was kind and honorable in a way she had rarely seen. He had spent a fortune to save her and asked nothing in return. He treated her with respect and gave her choices. Despite the strangeness of their situation, she was beginning to feel grateful not just for the rescue, but for him specifically. The third day of travel brought them into different country altogether, rolling grassland dotted with cattle, and the occasional ranch house in the distance. Vincent pointed out landmarks as they rode, showing her the boundaries of his land. It was beautiful country, green and open, with mountains visible in the hazy distance. "There," Vincent said in the late afternoon, pointing ahead. "That is home." Penelope looked and saw a cluster of buildings nestled in a valley beside a creek lined with cottonwood trees. The house was indeed small, built of logs with a stone chimney, but it looked solid and well maintained. The barn was larger, freshly painted red, and there were several corrals where horses grazed peacefully. Smoke rose from the bunkhouse chimney, indicating the hired hands were home. As they rode into the yard, two men emerged from the barn. They were clearly brothers, both tall and rangy with sun-weathered faces. The older one, who Penelope guessed was Tom, had dark hair going gray at the temples. The younger James was probably in his mid-20s with a friendly face and curious eyes. "Boss," Tom called out, "did not expect you back today. Did you get the supplies?" Vincent dismounted and helped Penelope down. "There was a change of plans." "Tom, James, this is Penelope. She is my wife. We were married 3 days ago in Silver Peak." Both men's jaws dropped. James recovered first, breaking into a wide grin. "Your wife? Well, I will be. Congratulations, boss. Madam, it is a pleasure to meet you." Tom looked more skeptical but tipped his hat politely. "Madam. This is certainly a surprise." "I am sure it is," Vincent said. "Let me get Penelope settled and then I will explain everything. James, can you take care of the horse?" "Sure thing, boss." Vincent led Penelope to the house while the brothers exchanged meaningful glances behind them. Inside, the house was simple but clean. The main room served as kitchen and living area with a stone fireplace and a sturdy table. One door led to what appeared to be a bedroom and another to a small storage room. "It is not much," Vincent said, looking around as if seeing it through her eyes. "But it is solid and warm." "It is wonderful," Penelope said honestly. Compared to the boarding house room she had been living in, or worse, the fate she had almost suffered, this little house looked like paradise. "Really, Vincent, it is more than enough." He looked relieved. "The bedroom is yours. I will sleep out here by the fire." "But this is your house," Penelope protested, "and you are my wife. Even in a marriage like ours, I will not make you uncomfortable. Please, Penelope, take the bedroom, I insist." Penelope realized that arguing would be pointless, and truthfully, she was grateful for the privacy. "Thank you." She carried her small bag into the bedroom and looked around. It held a simple bed with what looked like a handmade quilt, a dresser, and a chair. Pegs on the wall served as a closet. A window looked out over the creek and the mountains beyond. It was the first space that had been truly hers since her father died. When she returned to the main room, Vincent was building up the fire. "I need to go talk to Tom and James. Will you be all right here for a bit?" "Of course." After he left, Penelope explored the little house more thoroughly. The kitchen area had a cast iron stove, basic cookware and supplies. Everything was functional but sparse, the home of a man who spent more time working than living indoors. She found herself already thinking of small improvements she could make, then stopped herself. This was not really her home, not permanently. Vincent had made it clear she could leave whenever she wanted. But where would she go? She had no money, no family, no prospects. And more than that, she realized she did not want to leave. In 3 days, Vincent had shown her more kindness and respect than most men showed women they had known for years. The thought of staying, of making a real life here, was beginning to seem not just practical but actually appealing. Vincent returned as the sun was setting. Tom and James know the full story now. They are good men, they understand the situation, and they promise to treat you with respect. Thank you for telling them. I would not want them to think I was some kind of fortune hunter who tricked you into marriage. Vincent's expression grew serious. Penelope, no one who knows the truth could ever think that. You were the victim in all of this, not the villain. And I want you to know something else. I told Tom and James that if things work out, if you decide to stay, then this marriage could become real. Not just a legal protection, but a real partnership. But only if that is what you want. There is no pressure, no expectation. I just wanted you to know that the possibility exists if you ever wanted it. Penelope felt her cheeks warm. That is very honest of you. I believe in being straight with people. Now, are you hungry? I am not much of a cook, but I can manage something basic. Let me, Penelope said. I would like to earn my keep, and cooking is something I am actually good at. She made a simple dinner from the supplies in the kitchen. Salt pork, beans, cornbread. It was nothing fancy, but it was hot and filling. Tom and James joined them, and the brothers made an effort to include Penelope in the conversation, asking about her experience with horses and ranching. She found herself relaxing, laughing at James's jokes, discussing breeding lines with Tom, who clearly knew his livestock. After dinner, the brothers returned to the bunkhouse, and Vincent banked the fire while Penelope washed the dishes. The domesticity of it felt strange but also comforting. When she said good night and went to the bedroom, she found that Vincent had filled the wash basin with fresh water and left a towel warming by the fireplace. It was a small gesture, but it touched her deeply. Every action Vincent took showed consideration for her comfort and well-being. She washed and changed into her nightdress, then lay in the comfortable bed listening to Vincent moving around in the main room as he prepared his own sleeping area. Sleep did not come easily. Her mind kept turning over everything that had happened in the past days. 4 days ago she had been a free woman, albeit one in difficult circumstances. Then she had been reduced to property, sold on an auction block like an animal. Now she was a married woman, wife to a man she barely knew, living in a house on the edge of the Nevada wilderness. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized that Vincent had not just saved her from a terrible fate. He had given her a chance to build a new life, to be part of something. She had seen the ranch, seen the potential in it. With hard work, it could become something really special. And Vincent himself. He was unlike any man she had ever met. Strong but gentle, confident but not arrogant, kind without being weak. She thought about his offer, about the possibility of making their marriage real. The idea did not frighten her as much as it probably should have. In fact, lying there in the darkness, Penelope found herself hoping that maybe, just maybe, something real could grow between them. The days that followed fell into a rhythm. Penelope rose early and made breakfast for everyone. Then, while Vincent and the brothers worked the cattle and horses, she tackled the housework and started a garden. She also began helping with the horses, showing Tom and James some of the training techniques she had learned from her father. Vincent watched her work with a mixture of admiration and something else, something warmer that he tried to hide. He found himself increasingly drawn to her, not just because she was beautiful, though she certainly was, but because of her strength and determination. She had been through something traumatic, yet she faced each day with courage and even occasional humor. 2 weeks after they arrived at the ranch, Vincent had to make a supply run to the nearest town, a place called Cedar Ridge about a day's ride away. "Would you like to come?" he asked Penelope over breakfast. "You could pick out some fabric for curtains, maybe some supplies for your garden." "I would like that," Penelope said, pleased to be included, "but I do not have any money for fabric." "Penelope, you are my wife. What is mine is yours. Please, get whatever you need." They rode out together that morning, and Penelope found herself enjoying the journey. Vincent was easy to talk to, and they spent the hours sharing more stories about their lives. She learned that he loved the land with a passion she understood, that he dreamed of building his ranch into something that would last for generations. "I always thought I would have children someday," he said as they rode through a meadow dotted with wildflowers. "A son to teach ranching, maybe a daughter to spoil rotten. Though I suppose that is not likely now, given our arrangement." Penelope felt a pang at his words, hearing the resignation in them. "Why not? If we stay married, if things work out between us, there is no reason we could not have children eventually." Vincent looked at her, surprise and hope warring in his expression. "Is that something you would want? Eventually, I mean. Not right away, obviously, but someday." "I always wanted children," Penelope admitted. "I wanted a family of my own. And if I am being honest, Vincent, I am starting to think that staying here, making this marriage real, might be what I want." "Really?" Vincent's voice was barely above a whisper. "Really? You have been nothing but kind and respectful. You have given me a home and a purpose, and I like being around you. I like the life we are building." Vincent pulled his horse to a stop and turned to face her fully. "Penelope, I need to be honest with you. These past 2 weeks, getting to know you, watching you make that house into a home, seeing how good you are with the horses and how Tom and James have taken to you. I have been falling for you. I did not plan it, and I know it complicates things, but I could not keep it from you. If you want to keep things as they are, just friendly and respectful, I will do that. But if you are open to more, if you want to see if this could become something real, then I would like that very much." Penelope's heart was racing. "I am open to more. In fact, I think I have been falling for you too. I did not want to say anything because I thought maybe you just saw me as a responsibility, someone you had to take care of." "You were never just a responsibility," Vincent said firmly. He dismounted and came to stand beside her horse, looking up at her. "From the moment I saw you on that auction block, so brave and dignified despite the humiliation, I felt something. I told myself I was just doing the right thing, but the truth is, I wanted to be the one to save you. I wanted to be the one you turned to." Penelope dismounted too, and they stood facing each other in the meadow. "So what do we do now? We take it slow," Vincent said, reaching out to take her hand. "We get to know each other better. We court properly, even though we are already married. And when you are ready, when you are absolutely sure, then we make this marriage real in every way. Does that sound all right?" "That sounds perfect," Penelope said, and she meant it. Vincent raised her hand to his lips and kissed it gently, and Penelope felt warmth spread through her entire body. This man, this wonderful man who had saved her and asked nothing in return, was falling in love with her, and she was falling in love with him right back. They continued to Cedar Ridge holding hands, talking and laughing like young people in the first flush of courtship. At the general store, Vincent insisted she pick out whatever she wanted. Penelope chose fabric for curtains and a new dress, seeds for her garden, and some books she had been wanting to read. Vincent bought supplies for the ranch, and when he thought she was not looking, a beautiful silver hair comb that he tucked into his pocket for later. On the ride home the next day, they talked about their future in more concrete terms. Vincent told her his plans for expanding the herd, for building a bigger house someday when they had children. Penelope shared her ideas for starting a proper horse breeding operation, using the skills her father had taught her. "We make a good team," Vincent observed. "Yes, we do," Penelope agreed. Back at the ranch, their relationship continued to deepen. Vincent courted her properly, bringing her wildflowers from the meadow, taking her on evening rides to watch the sunset, sitting with her on the porch after dinner to watch the stars come out. He was patient, never pushing for more than she was ready to give, but making his feelings clear through 1,000 small gestures. Penelope bloomed under his attention. The sadness and fear that had clouded her eyes when they first met gradually disappeared, replaced by joy and confidence. She laughed more, smiled more, and began to truly think of the ranch as home. One evening, about 6 weeks after they had married, they sat together on the porch watching the last light fade from the sky. Vincent had his arm around her shoulders, and Penelope was leaning into his warmth. "I have been thinking," she said quietly. "About our marriage." Vincent tensed slightly. "What about it?" "I am ready," Penelope said, turning to look at him. "I am ready for this to be a real marriage in every way. I love you, Vincent. I think I have for a while now, but I wanted to be sure, and I am sure." Vincent's expression was a mixture of joy and disbelief. "Are you certain?" "There is no rush, Penelope. I can wait as long as you need." "I am certain," she said firmly. "I love you. I want to be your wife in truth, not just on paper. I want to build a life with you, have children with you, grow old with you. If you still want that." "If I still want that," Vincent laughed, pulling her close. "Penelope, I have wanted that since about the 3rd day I knew you. I love you so much it scares me sometimes. You are everything I did not know I was looking for." He kissed her then, not the chaste kiss from their wedding day, but a real kiss full of passion and promise. Penelope kissed him back, pouring all her feelings into it, all her gratitude and love and hope for the future. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Vincent stood and held out his hand. "Come with me, wife." Penelope took his hand and let him lead her into the house, to the bedroom that had been hers alone. But tonight, for the first time, Vincent came with her. He was gentle and patient, mindful that this was her first time, making sure she felt safe and loved and cherished. And when they finally came together as husband and wife in truth, Penelope felt like the last piece of her new life had fallen into place. Afterward, lying in Vincent's arms, Penelope thought about the journey that had brought her here. She had lost everything: her father, her home, her freedom. She had stood on an auction block and been sold like property. But from that terrible low point, she had found Vincent, and through him, she had found love and a new beginning. "What are you thinking about?" Vincent asked, running his fingers through her hair. "How strange life is," Penelope said. "How something so terrible led to something so wonderful. If my father had not died, if I had not been auctioned, I never would have met you." "I have been thinking the same thing," Vincent admitted. "I hate what you went through, but I am grateful it brought you to me." "So am I," Penelope said. She kissed him again, softly this time. "I love you, Vincent Thompson." "I love you too, Penelope Thompson." They fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, and for the first time since her father's death, Penelope's sleep was peaceful and dreamless. The following months were the happiest of Penelope's life. She and Vincent grew closer every day, learning each other's rhythms and quirks, building a partnership based on love and mutual respect. The ranch prospered under their joint management. Penelope's expertise with horses proved invaluable, and she began a breeding program that showed real promise. Tom and James became not just employees but friends. They were delighted to see their boss so happy, and they respected Penelope for her hard work and knowledge. The four of them worked together smoothly, and by the time autumn arrived, the ranch was doing better than Vincent had dared hope. In September, Penelope realized she had missed her monthly courses. She waited another few weeks to be sure, then told Vincent the news one evening as they sat by the fire. "I am with child," she said simply. Vincent's face went through a rapid series of emotions: shock, disbelief, and finally pure joy. "Truly, we are going to have a baby." "Yes," Penelope said, laughing at his expression. "Are you happy?" "Happy, Penelope, I am. I cannot even find words. This is the best news." He pulled her into his arms and held her tight. "We are going to be parents." "We are," Penelope agreed, and she felt her own eyes filling with tears of joy. The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Vincent was attentive almost to the point of being overprotective, constantly worrying about Penelope doing too much. She tolerated his concern with good humor, knowing it came from love. Tom and James were also excited, already making plans to teach the baby to ride as soon as he or she was old enough. As winter approached, Vincent became obsessed with making sure the house was ready for the baby. He built a beautiful cradle from pine wood, sanding it until it was smooth as silk. Penelope sewed tiny clothes and blankets, marveling at how small they were. The baby came in early April of 1883, during a spring rainstorm that turned the yard to mud. The labor was long and difficult, but the local midwife, a capable woman named Mrs. Harrison who lived on the neighboring ranch, saw Penelope through it safely. Vincent paced outside for hours, driving Tom and James crazy with his anxiety, until finally the baby's cry cut through the sound of rain. Mrs. Harrison opened the door with a smile. "You have a son, Mr. Thompson, a healthy boy with good lungs." Vincent rushed inside to find Penelope exhausted but radiant, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in one of the blankets she had made. The baby had a shock of dark hair and was indeed crying lustily. "A son," Vincent breathed, sitting carefully on the edge of the bed. "May I hold him?" Penelope placed the baby in his arms, and Vincent looked down at his son with an expression of pure wonder. "He is perfect. You are perfect." "Thank you, Penelope." "Thank you," Penelope said, "for everything, for saving me, for loving me, for giving me this beautiful life." Vincent leaned down and kissed her forehead. "You saved me too. I just did not know I needed saving until I met you." They named the boy Victor, after Vincent's father. He was a healthy, happy baby who filled the house with noise and life. Vincent was a devoted father, getting up for nighttime feedings without complaint, walking the floor with Victor when he was fussy, singing him lullabies in his deep voice. Penelope watched her husband with their son and felt her heart swell with love. This was the life she had dreamed of but never thought she would have. A loving husband, a beautiful child, a home of her own. Every day she thanked God for bringing Vincent into her life at exactly the moment she needed him most. As Victor grew from a baby into a toddler, the ranch continued to flourish. Vincent expanded the herd and bought more land. Penelope's horse breeding operation gained a reputation for quality, and buyers came from 3 counties away to purchase her stock. They hired another 2 hands to help with the increased work. When Victor was 2 years old, Penelope found herself pregnant again. This time the pregnancy seemed easier, perhaps because she knew what to expect. Vincent was still overprotective but had learned to give her more space. The baby, a girl they named Sarah after Vincent's sister, was born in the autumn of 1885. Sarah was as different from her brother as could be. Where Victor had been loud and active from birth, Sarah was peaceful and contemplative, content to lie in her cradle and observe the world with serious gray eyes. Vincent adored her instantly, proving himself to be exactly the kind of father who would spoil his daughter rotten. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. The children grew, the ranch prospered, and Vincent and Penelope's love deepened with each passing year. They had their challenges, certainly. There were hard winters and dry summers, cattle that got sick and horses that threw shoes at inconvenient times, the endless work that came with running a ranch. But they faced everything together as partners. On their 5th anniversary, Vincent took Penelope to the spot where they had first declared their feelings, the meadow filled with wildflowers. The children were home with Tom's wife, Martha, whom he had married the previous year. 5 years, Vincent said, holding Penelope's hand as they walked through the flowers. Sometimes it feels like yesterday that I saw you on that auction block. Other times it feels like we have been together forever. I know what you mean, Penelope said. That day changed my entire life. I thought it was the end of everything, but it was really the beginning. I am so grateful I was there that day, Vincent said. I know it was terrible for you, but I cannot help being grateful that fate brought us together. Penelope stopped walking and turned to face him. I am grateful too. You gave me back my life, and then you gave me so much more. You gave me love and family and purpose. You made me happier than I ever thought possible. Vincent pulled a small box from his pocket. I have something for you. I know we are already married and have been for 5 years, but I never gave you a proper ring. I want to remedy that now. He opened the box to reveal a simple gold band with 3 small diamonds set in it. It is not fancy, but the jeweler in Cedar Ridge said the 3 diamonds represent past, present, and future. Our past that brought us together, our present that we share, and our future that stretches before us. Tears filled Penelope's eyes as Vincent slipped the ring onto her finger, next to the plain band Judge Thornton had provided on their wedding day. It is beautiful. I love it. I love you. I love you too, Vincent said. More today than yesterday and less than I will tomorrow. They kissed there in the meadow, surrounded by wildflowers and sunshine, and Penelope thought about how far they had come. From strangers brought together by desperation and kindness, they had built something rare and precious, a marriage based on love, respect, and genuine partnership. The years continued to pass, bringing more joys and occasional sorrows. Vincent's sister Sarah and her family came to visit, and Penelope was delighted to meet the woman whose situation had inspired Vincent to save her. The 2 women became fast friends, and their children played together happily. Tom and Martha had children of their own, as did James when he married a schoolteacher from Cedar Ridge. The ranch became almost like a small community, with 3 families all working together to build something lasting. Victor grew into a boy who loved the ranch as much as his father did. He learned to rope and ride almost before he could write his name, and he showed a natural talent for working with cattle. Sarah, meanwhile, proved to have her mother's gift with horses. By the time she was 6 years old, she could gentle a skittish colt better than most full-grown men. In 1888, when Victor was 5 and Sarah was 3, Penelope gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl they named James and Josephine, called Josie. Vincent joked that they now had a full house, but Penelope could see the joy in his eyes every time he looked at their growing family. The house, Vincent had once said, was small had been expanded over the years. Now it had 6 rooms, a proper dining area, and even a small library where Penelope could keep the growing collection of books she loved. Outside, the barn had been rebuilt larger and sturdier, the corrals expanded, and a proper stable constructed for Penelope's breeding horses. Through it all, Vincent and Penelope's love remained the foundation of everything. They still made time for each other, still went on evening rides when they could steal away, still sat on the porch after the children were in bed and talked about their dreams and plans. On a warm evening in the summer of 1890, 8 years after that fateful day in Silver Peak, they sat together watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. Their 4 children were playing in the yard under Tom's watchful eye. The sound of their laughter carried on the breeze. "Did you ever imagine this?" Penelope asked, leaning against Vincent's shoulder. "When you paid $800 for a stranger at an auction, did you imagine all of this?" Vincent was quiet for a moment, thinking. "Honestly, no. I imagined helping you, maybe seeing you safely away to start a new life somewhere. But I never imagined we would build something like this together. 4 beautiful children, a prosperous ranch, a love that gets stronger every year. This is beyond anything I could have dreamed." "Me too," Penelope said softly. "That day was the worst day of my life, but it led to all the best days. I lost everything, but I gained so much more." "Do you ever think about your father?" Vincent asked gently. They rarely spoke of him, but Vincent knew Penelope thought of him sometimes. "Sometimes," Penelope admitted. "I wish he could have met you, seen what we built together. I think he would have been proud. And I hope he would have been proud of me too, for not letting what happened break me, for taking the chance you offered and building something good from it." "He would have been very proud," Vincent assured her. "You are the strongest, most capable woman I have ever known. Everything we have, we built together. You are my true partner in every way." Penelope turned and kissed him. "And you are mine. I love you, Vincent Thompson. Thank you for choosing to save me that day. Thank you for choosing me every day since." "Thank you for choosing me back," Vincent said. "For trusting me, for giving us a chance, for making me the happiest man alive." They sat together as the sun finished setting and the stars began to appear, watching their children play, listening to the familiar sounds of the ranch settling down for the night. This was home. This was family. This was the life they had built from the ashes of tragedy and the seeds of unexpected kindness. As the years continued to roll by, the Thompson Ranch became known throughout northern Nevada, not just for its quality livestock, but for the family that ran it. People spoke of Vincent and Penelope with respect and a touch of romanticism, telling the story of how they had come together under such unusual circumstances and built something wonderful. The children grew and thrived. Victor decided at age 16 that he wanted to follow in his father's footsteps and make ranching his life. Sarah surprised everyone by discovering a talent for drawing and painting, particularly animals. The twins, James and Josie, were inseparable, and both showed promise in different aspects of ranch work. When Victor turned 18 in 1901, Vincent deeded him a portion of the land to start his own operation adjacent to the main ranch. It was a proud moment for Vincent, seeing his son step into manhood and ready to build his own legacy. Penelope cried happy tears at the ceremony, remembering the frightened young woman she had been when she first came to this land, never imagining she would someday watch her own children grow into capable adults here. Sarah announced at 15 that she wanted to go to art school in San Francisco. After much discussion, Vincent and Penelope agreed, though they worried about their daughter in the big city. But Sarah promised to come home regularly, and they knew she needed to follow her dream. When she left on the train in 1900, clutching her portfolio and looking both excited and nervous, Penelope held Vincent's hand tight and whispered, "We raised her right. She will be fine." And Sarah was fine. She thrived in art school and eventually became a successful painter, though she always came home to the ranch for long visits, saying the landscape and horses inspired her best work. The twins followed their own paths too. James became a veterinarian, going away to school but returning to practice in Cedar Ridge, where he was always available when the ranch needed him. Josie, spirited and independent like her mother, became a teacher and then later fought for women's suffrage, making both her parents intensely proud. Through all the changes and growth, Vincent and Penelope remained each other's constant. They aged together gracefully, their hair graying but their love never fading. On quiet evenings, they still told each other the story of how they met, still marveled at the strange twist of fate that had brought them together. In 1907, when they had been married for 25 years, their children organized a surprise anniversary celebration. All four came home, bringing spouses and grandchildren that Vincent and Penelope adored. The ranch was full of life and laughter. 3 generations gathered to celebrate. After the party, when everyone had gone to bed, Vincent and Penelope walked out to the porch they had sat on countless times over the years. The moon was full, casting silver light over the land they had worked so hard to build. 25 years, Penelope said wonderingly. How did the time go so fast? I do not know, Vincent said, pulling her close. But I would not change a single moment of it. Well, except maybe I would have found a better way to meet you than an auction block. Penelope laughed. True, but you know what? Even that I cannot fully regret, because it brought you into my life. Without that terrible day, we would never have found each other. Then I am grateful for it too, despite the awfulness, Vincent said, because you are the best thing that ever happened to me. You and our children and this life we built. I am a very lucky man. We are both lucky, Penelope corrected. We found each other when we both needed saving, and we saved each other. They stood together in the moonlight, 2 people who had started as strangers brought together by desperation and had become the deepest of partners. The ranch spread out around them, prosperous and peaceful. Their children slept under the same roof, home where they belonged. Grandchildren dreamed in their beds, the next generation who would carry forward the legacy of love and hard work. It had been a long journey from that terrible day in Silver Peak to this moment of perfect contentment. But every step had been worth it. Every challenge overcome had made them stronger. Penelope thought about the frightened young woman standing on that auction block, unable to see any future beyond that moment of humiliation. If she could speak to that younger self, she would tell her to have courage, that a cowboy with kind eyes was about to change everything, that loss and pain would eventually transform into joy and love. But that younger Penelope could not have understood. Some things had to be lived to be believed. The depth of love she felt for Vincent, the satisfaction of building a ranch together, the pride in their children, the peace of knowing she was exactly where she belonged. These were things that could not be explained, only experienced. What are you thinking about? Vincent asked, as he had asked her so many times over the years. How much I love you, Penelope said simply. How grateful I am for everything we have built together. How even though we started in the strangest, most difficult way, we created something beautiful. Vincent kissed her softly. We did not we? We took something broken and made it whole. We turned a business transaction into a love story. The best love story, Penelope agreed. They stayed on the porch until late, talking and laughing and remembering, planning for the future. When they finally went to bed, they fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, just as they had on their first real night together 25 years before. The years continued to roll forward. Vincent and Penelope saw their grandchildren grow up, and eventually even great-grandchildren arrived. The ranch passed primarily to Victor and his children, though all the Thompson children maintained ties to the land that had been their childhood home. Vincent and Penelope grew old together, their steps slower but their love undimmed. They still took rides together when the weather was good, still sat on the porch in the evenings, still held hands like young sweethearts. Anyone who saw them could see the deep bond between them, a connection that had only strengthened over decades of shared life. On a spring morning in 1920, 38 years after that fateful day in Silver Peak, Penelope woke to find Vincent unusually quiet beside her. He had been ill for several weeks, his heart growing weaker, though he had insisted he was fine. But this morning, she could see the truth in his eyes. "Vincent," she said, fear clutching at her heart. He smiled at her, that same warm smile that had made her feel safe from their very first meeting. "It is all right, my love. I have had a wonderful life all because of you." "Do not talk like that," Penelope said, her eyes filling with tears. "You are going to be fine." "Penelope," Vincent said gently, taking her hand. "We both know that is not true, but I am not afraid. I have had more happiness than any man deserves. I got to love you, to build a life with you, to watch our children grow and thrive. I got 64 years on this earth, and the last 38 of them were perfect because I spent them with you." Tears were streaming down Penelope's face now. "I cannot lose you. You are everything to me." "And you are everything to me," Vincent said, "but you will be all right. You are strong, Penelope. You have always been strong. Our children will take care of you, and you have grandchildren and great-grandchildren who love you. You will have a good life still." "It will not be the same without you," Penelope whispered. "No, it will not," Vincent agreed. "But remember what we talked about that night after our 5th anniversary? Past, present, and future. We have had a beautiful past and present, and in the future we will be together again. This is not goodbye forever, just goodbye for now." He squeezed her hand weakly. "Thank you, Penelope. Thank you for taking a chance on a stranger. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for the best 38 years a man could ask for. Thank you for saving me," Penelope said through her tears. "Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for every day, every moment. I love you so much." "I love you too," Vincent said. "Always and forever." He closed his eyes then, a peaceful expression on his face, and quietly slipped away. Penelope held his hand and wept, mourning the loss of her partner, her love, her best friend. The funeral was large, attended by what seemed like half the county. Vincent had been respected and loved by everyone who knew him. The children were devastated but took comfort in being together, sharing memories of their father. Victor spoke at the service about how his father had taught him not just how to run a ranch, but how to be a good man. Sarah painted a portrait of Vincent for the service, capturing his kind eyes perfectly. James and Josie shared funny stories that made everyone laugh through their tears. After the funeral, Penelope spent a long time at Vincent's grave. She told him about the service, about how many people had come to pay their respects, about how proud she was of their children. And she promised him that she would be strong, just as he had asked, that she would continue to live a full life in his honor. The months after Vincent's death were difficult. Penelope missed him with an ache that never fully went away, but she kept her promise to him. She stayed involved with the ranch, though Victor ran the day-to-day operations now. She spent time with her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, delighting in their company. She kept the house she and Vincent had shared, maintaining it lovingly, keeping fresh flowers on the table just as she always had when he was alive. 5 years after Vincent's death, on a summer evening much like the one where they had first declared their feelings decades before, Penelope took a ride out to the meadow of wildflowers. She was 73 years old now, her hair completely white, her hands gnarled with arthritis. But she could still ride, and she still loved this land that she and Vincent had built their life on. She stood in the meadow, letting the beauty of it wash over her. She thought about Vincent, about their life together, about everything they had accomplished, and she felt grateful. Despite the terrible way they had met, despite the pain and loss she had endured, her life had been good. More than good, it had been wonderful. "Thank you," she said aloud, speaking to Vincent as if he could hear her. "Thank you for everything. I am coming to join you someday, but not quite yet. I still have things to do, people to love, life to live. But when my time comes, I will find you and we will be together again." A breeze rustled through the wildflowers, almost like an answer, and Penelope smiled. She turned her horse for home, toward the ranch where her family waited, toward the life she still had to live. She had been auctioned, freed, and married all in one incredible day 43 years ago. Everything that had happened since had been a gift, every year with Vincent a blessing. Penelope lived for another 12 years, active and engaged until the very end. She saw more grandchildren marry and more great-grandchildren born. She told them all the story of how she and Vincent had met, making sure they understood the legacy they came from. A legacy of courage and kindness and love that conquered all obstacles. When Penelope passed away peacefully in her sleep in 1937 at the age of 85, it felt like the end of an era. She was buried beside Vincent, their headstones side by side, just as they had been in life. The inscription on their shared monument reads simply, "Vincent and Penelope Thompson. Together always." The ranch continued on, run by their descendants who honored the legacy their grandparents had built. The story of Vincent and Penelope became part of family lore, told and retold to each new generation. The auction that had threatened to destroy Penelope's life, the cowboy who had freed her, the marriage that had started as protection and became the greatest love story anyone knew. It all became part of the family's history, shaping who they were and who they would become. And somewhere beyond this world, Vincent and Penelope were together again, their love transcending even death, eternal and unbreakable. They had taken the worst circumstances and created something beautiful. They had turned pain into purpose, desperation into devotion, and a business transaction into a legendary romance. Their story was one of hope, proving that even in the darkest moments when all seems lost, love can find a way. That a single act of kindness can change everything. That two strangers can become soulmates. That a cowboy and the woman he freed can build a legacy that lasts for generations. In the end, it was a story of the Wild West at its finest, full of danger and hardship, but also courage and love. It was Penelope and Vincent's story, unique to them, but also universal in its themes of redemption and second chances. It was a reminder that our worst days can lead to our best ones, that loss can be followed by love, that endings can become beginnings. And it all started on one blazing afternoon in Silver Peak, Nevada, when a cowboy named Vincent Thompson looked up at an auction block and decided that some things were worth any price, especially the freedom and future of a brave young woman named Penelope Sterling. From that moment, everything changed, and two lives were forever intertwined, creating a love story that would be remembered long after they were gone.